Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Casson Academy. My name is Brian Casson, and in today's session, we're going to start talking about bid strategies. There's quite a lot to learn in this session, whether to use cost per click, whether you use CPA, return on ad spend. So we're going to jump right into it and hope this is really informal. So here we go. When you get your campaign, as usual, we're going to start in the setup. We covered all of these in previous videos. So we did our networks, we've done our locations, languages, budget. One of the hardest sections is the bidding section on how to actually target your audience and which of these options to use while targeting. You can see by default, Google likes to try and target conversions. In most cases, it'll be set to conversions. In order to use a lot of these bidding features, you have to have conversions set up in your account, and your analytics has to be connected to your Google AdWords. So just keep that in mind. So we're going to go through the Help Center in Google as well, because there's a lot of these features. Some of them are automated and some of them are manual. And I'm going to show you all of the different options now. So to get to the features after the default, you need to click on the Select a Bid Strategy option. Then there's a drop down and you can see all the different bidding types that we can go through today. So most of these are automated. You can see here it says automated at the top, and then we've got one manual bidding strategy towards the bottom here. So the first one I wanted to talk about is CPA, which is cost per acquisition. Google also calls this cost per action. So cost acquisition, action, they're exactly the same thing, but depending on the Help Center, sometimes Google will say action, and sometimes Google will say acquisition. So basically, it's spending money to a certain point that you're happy that you'll get an acquisition for it. In other words, if it was a CPA of 100 Rand, Google will try to stick to that. It will only spend 100 Rand in your account in order to get you one lead within that account, cost per acquisition. So if you do set CPA, the easiest way to figure out which CPA to use is to allow the campaign to first run in CPC, and then later on, once it's run a little bit, you will get a CPA in your account. If you're happy with that number, then you can come in here, you can switch to CPA, and it'll give you a number. If the number doesn't populate in this field when you come to it after running your ads for a while, then that probably means you don't really qualify for CPA. Maybe the CPA is too high, or you don't have 100 conversions yet. So you have to have 100 in order for this to activate. And in some cases, you can even have as little as 10 conversions for this to activate, just so long as Google's got some sort of history that they can go by to determine what your cost per acquisition is going to be, or cost per action. So if this is a retail site, this would probably be not the add to cart, that's not your ad acquisition, it'll be the actual purchase. So you can come in here and say, I want to spend X amount of money for that purchase. If you are doing a regular site that doesn't have a shopping feed, then maybe filling in a form is an acquisition. Once you get 3, 4, 5, 10 of these acquisitions within a month, then Google might recommend in the recommendations button. I'm just going to copy this tab to show you where that is. Okay, close that there. Okay, so the recommendations tab. So if you get to the recommendations tab, Google might say you need to use this as a CPA, or this campaign will qualify as a CPA. If that does happen, it generally means when you get back to here, it will fill in a number. And if that number is good for you, you're quite happy with 100, 200 Rand cost per acquisition, then it's great. If you're selling small items and it tells you 5,000 Rand cost per acquisition, probably not the best time to activate it. You only want to activate it if it comes in at a good rate. Okay, so that's cost per acquisition. The next one down is return on ad spend, ROAS. You'll see this is defined with a percentage. Generally used only if you've set up conversion value in your account, in your Google Analytics account. So let's say you're selling a watch. That watch is 800 Rand. you can come in here and say, I want to set a conversion value of 800 Rand. It's pulling it from the shop. And then you say to Google, I want to spend 10 times more, 5 times more, whatever it is to get that acquisition. In other words, if it is, let's do a simple maths here. Let's do 1 Rand. The item that you're selling cost 1 Rand. But you want to make 5 times more budget. In other words, you want to make 5 Rand from that 1 Rand. You'll come and put 500%. If you want to make exactly the same amount, 1 Rand for every 1 Rand, you're going to put 100%. If you want to make 10 times more, then you'll put in 1,000% for your return on ad spend. So it's how much do you want to spend versus make. If the item costs 1 Rand and you want to make 5 times more than 1 Rand or the value of that item, then you would put 500%. So that's return on ad spend. If you don't have a basket or you don't actually have conversion value or transactions running on your account, you can go into your Google Analytics and you can set up conversion value. So let's say every single item on your site is worth approximately 400 Rand. You would go into your Google Analytics, under the value for your goal, you would set it to 400 Rand. You can also do this in your AdWords account. So if I go to my conversions, I can ask it to pull the value from Google Analytics. Okay, here's your conversion value. And here I'm asking it to take the conversion value from Google Analytics. If you know for a fact that every single lead is worth 400 Rand to you, you can say, don't pull it from Google Analytics. I'm going to use the value myself. So I'm going to say here, 400 Rand is how much I think a lead is worth, and Google will try get that particular rate. So you can set your own values in Google Ads or in Google Analytics. So that's return on ad spend. The next one that we have is maximize clicks. If you don't have conversions set up in your account, and this is a brand new account, and you just want to get clicks, then this is a good one to try and achieve. Google will try to get you as many clicks as possible within your account for your determined budget. So if you're spending 100 Rand a day, it will get you as many clicks as possible within the account. It is not a conversion-based model. It is a click-based model, so don't expect to get a lot of leads from this particular automated bidding style. The next one that you have is maximize conversions. Again, this one has to have conversions set up in the account in order to work. It'll try get you as many conversions as possible for the amount that you put in. So if you have a 100 Rand budget for the day, Google will try get you as many conversions as possible. But again, it needs a history. It can't just get you conversions out of thin air. You have to have conversions in your account. Generally, I would only activate that if I'm getting 2 or 3 conversions that are quite close together. If I'm only getting a conversion once every 3 months, it's very hard for Google to determine to get you more of those conversions, because it's got nothing for it to go by. It doesn't know what time of day, it doesn't know which day of the week, because you're only getting 1 or 2 every few months. So it's a great model if your conversions get much closer together. So in your account, if you're seeing 5 conversions a day, go for it. Go and do the maximize conversions. If you see even 5 conversions in a week and they're all on the Mondays and Tuesdays and they're stacked close together, then you can use maximize conversions there. Okay, so that's your maximize. Just one thing to be careful with maximize conversions is that if you have very big budgets, let's say you got a 30,000 Rand a day budget, max conversions is your biggest spender. So if you say 30,000, Google's going to spend 30,000 in a day. It's going to go out and spend every single penny of that budget. So just be careful that you set your daily budget to an accurate amount. If you're overcompensating for your daily budget, be careful, because max conversions will spend the entire budget, unlike CPA or ROAS, which don't generally spend the entire budget. They spend a percentage of it. So that's max conversions. Then you got maximize conversion value. It gets you the most value out, most conversions out of the value. So again, if we set it to 400 Rand, it'll try to get you as many conversions for that value of 400 Rand. So it's also a very nice one to do. Again, you got to have conversions running. You have to set up the value in analytics or Google Ads, and then you'll be able to run the maximize conversion value option. Okay, one of the ones that is fairly new is target impression share. So if I go to a ads campaign, I'm just going to switch to all time so we can see some stats. If you don't see your stuff, you must switch to all instead of all enabled. There we go. So now I'm going to look for something called target impression share. First thing you got to do is you got to know what your impression share is. So under competitive metrics, you'll see a search impression share. And you can see the red line here was showing me that this particular campaign was running at 96% impression share. Back here it was 94% impression share. You can do this per group as well. You can select competitive metrics, impression share, and you can see generally it was in the 90s or so. You want to always try and keep your impression share above 70%. Now what this targeting option does is it allows you to set your impression share. You got a daily budget of 100 Rand and you tell Google that I want to be there 97% of the day. An impression share of 97%. If it's only 100 Rand, you might only be on and off, and you might have less quality spots. In other words, be in position number 6 or 5 or 4, and probably not the primary spots. If you have a big budget and you say 97%, then this it will probably achieve that 97% in a primary spots like first, second, or third. You can also say I want to spend not more than 10 Rand cost per click for that to achieve that impression share. Sometimes though, when you choose impression share and the items or the fields that you put in are not realistic, your ads don't show. So just be careful that if you're saying 97% and I'm only willing to pay 10 cents for that particular cost per click, you might get nothing. So just keep that in mind. Don't be unrealistic. The best way, again, to look at it is to go into the history of your account, see what you're achieving before, see what the cost per clicks were at that particular time. So here you can see the average cost per click for this particular one was about 38 Rand. So you can't really come in and say I want to pay 3 Rand to get 97%. You can see it's not realistic. So always look at your history, say, okay, I really like this rate. I like my 93% at 43. You can go to your campaigns and you can ask Google to stick to that rate. So 97%, 43 Rand cost per click. Now you got a good chance of getting some pretty good feedback there. There's another option in here where it allows you to be anywhere on the results page. In other words, position 1 to 6. You can say top of results page, which means 1 to 3, or sometimes number 4, or you can say absolute top of results page. That means you want to be in position number 1. Not generally the best thing to do. I've seen a lot in a lot of our campaigns, position number 1 is not always best. It's quite good to be in position number 2, 3, 4. Just because you're in first doesn't mean you're going to get the best results, but you are going to get the highest click-through ratio. The click-through ratios on the first are generally much higher than second, third, and fourth, but it doesn't mean the quality is higher. Okay, so those are the automated bidding options. You can see that we've gone through cost per acquisition, return on ad spend, maximize conversions, and then we go to eCPC. You'll see it's not even in the drop down. There's no CPC. It's enhanced cost per click. You'd click on manual and you'd tick the little box there that says enhanced cost per click. What this basically does is it turns it into a cost per click model. You pay every time somebody clicks, and then enhanced is basically optimizing it for time of day, but not necessarily on conversions. There's a lot of metrics that come into play here. Could be time on site, it could be page speed, it could be the landing page quality, but it's asking you to enhance your cost per click. Go out there and get me the best possible cost per click that I've set. Once you've chosen this option, you will need to choose a value, in other words, a bidding value, and that bid would be, for example, I'm willing to do 10 Rand cost per click. You saw that in this particular account, the average was 40 or so. So here you could say yes, manual, and the next step it will ask you how much you're willing to pay for that manual spot. So that's the enhanced one. If you don't have conversions set up, that takes you to one of the last ones, which is a manual bidding strategy, and it won't allow you to tick the box. So when you've got a brand new campaign, you don't have any conversions in the account, you don't have any history in the account, this may be your only option to go for in the beginning, manual CPC. And you won't be able to tick the box because it's got no conversions to go by. Because eCPC does use conversion value. You'll see there's a big warning here that tells you don't use it. We use it quite a lot. Generally speaking, people that know ads well, they will use the manual CPC with the enhanced option, and they'll manually adjust their bids within their account. Now, just to go into the account, I'm going to show you the different settings on the right-hand side or in the columns that you can get for each of these bidding options. So if you choose CPA, if I switch this account, I'm going to go into it. I'm going to show you now from within the account where you can switch your bidding options. Again, this is the default that I had. I'm going to switch it now to CPA. Okay. Go back. Okay, so I'm going to switch to CPA. And let's say it was 200 Rand CPA, or cost per acquisition of 200 Rand. I'm going to save it there. When I go into that particular groups now, you'll see that this target CPA will appear in a column. This is where you can adjust it. So as you're running, you're saying, I want to keep to an acquisition rate of 200. You can see here how realistic it is. 200, and it was actually getting 400, so 200 might be a little bit optimistic. Here 391, so now what you'll generally do is per ad group is you would set it to the value you're getting historically. $421, $391, and that's what I would set it for. I would run the campaign there at that particular rate, and then what you're going to notice is as Google learns, and Google takes about 15 days to learn if you have about 100 visits a month. If you're getting thousands of visits a day, this learning curve can actually take a few hours. It learns a lot faster the more traffic it gets. Once that starts to run, then what you can do is you'll notice that the cost per acquisition that you've set will most probably achieve. In other words, you've set 699. After 30 days, it might come in at 599, which means that you can drop this rate. Then the next month, you set 599 and it hits 499, you can drop the rate. And that's how your ads get cheaper over time. Just note that if you change the cost per acquisition and you don't achieve the amount there, it just means that 30 days hasn't passed. You will need to wait a full 30 days to pass in order for it to achieve that rate that you've set. If your ads go off, it means that you weren't being realistic. You set a rate that is far too low and suddenly you don't get any impressions at all or any clicks at all. You've gone a little bit too far, you need to bring it back again. But that's basically how the CPA gets cheaper over time. ROAS is a very similar option. If I switch it to ROAS, You'll also get a column on the side. CPC is a little bit different. If you have CPC, you'll notice that there's a CPC, default CPC in the column. And this is, if you obviously run it at R1 and it's not realistic, you will bump the CP up to R2, R10, and Google will actually suggest to you what CPC to use. It'll turn red and it'll tell you that R1 is below the page bid, in which case you want to lift it up to above the minimum requirement, and then your ad will run. So if you ever see the CPC in red, it just means that there's a likely that your ads aren't going to run because the CPC rate that you've set is too low. Let's see if I can bring an example back here. I'm going to switch the CPA back to CPC. Google does really make you work around to get back to it. Doesn't like the manual options. Now when I go back into the account, you'll see that it has calculated my cost per click according to what I was getting historically. So it's saying you should have 60, you should have 30, you should have 40, and so on as a cost per click. Again, it's looking at this column, and you can see here the average is actually 20. You want to set it slightly higher than the average that you're getting. So if it says 20, 30 is a good idea. If it says 30, 40 is a good idea, and so on and so on. So you just want to keep control on that particular one. So that's bidding strategies. Now, when to switch, when not to switch. I suggest, if you're brand new at ads, that you leave your campaigns on CPC models with the enhanced tick for a while until you got some statistics. Once you get really good statistics and things are starting to work and you're starting to get conversions, then Google will recommend it. So if you're in the campaign, you go to recommendations, Google's going to say, we recommend you switch to CPA. Only then you can consider, yes, I'm going to switch to CPA. Before then, probably not a good idea. So CPA is a good one to move into. A lot of times Google will suggest the other one, which is the impression share one. In a lot of cases, Google gets that one wrong, and if you switch to impression share, it doesn't always do so well. You're welcome to try it. In other words, run it for a few days. If you're not getting results that were as good as the CPA or the CPC, then you want to switch back. So be careful of the impression share one. We like to think that we want to be there all the time, but sometimes it's not the best idea. So just wait for the recommendations. So just to recap, good recommendations would be switching to CPA if you have enough conversions. Bad recommendations would be to switch to impression share when Google just wants you to do it without testing it first. If Google wants you to switch to conversion value, just know that your ads will go down or be less performing for about 7 days. And also once you switch to CPA, you have about 7 days or so recovery time where you get a worse rate than you did before. Okay, so just let that particular one run. And that's basically your bidding and how to find your bidding and which time to use it. Keep an eye on your bell. The bell will say change something to CPA when it qualifies. I suggest you don't switch to CPA if Google's not recommending it. In other words, the bell hasn't activated. Then it probably means that you haven't qualified for CPA. The rate that you're going to get was probably not as good. Then you want to leave your campaign. So, yep, that's it for bidding. I'm going to share the support link with you. It's actually already inside the video. If you go to the complete and you go to the next page, you'll see the support link for bidding. You can always come back here and check. Just remember, it's great to test. If you want to try CPA, do it for a few days. If you want to try and maximize conversions, make sure you set your budget to the right amount. Try it for a few days, and so on. The only way you're going to learn ads is to try, and there's going to be some wins, there's going to be some losses, but at the end of the day, you've tried it, you've understood it, did it work, did it not work. Yes, a lot of times it doesn't work, but when it does work, you're going to be smiling. You're going to love the fact that, hey, I got a much better rate now for this particular one. And you can see, so the two manual ones are manual CPC and maximize clicks. There's no learning processes in here. They just go, they basically get you clicks. and then those are all your automated ones that you see up at the top. Okay. We're not going to cover display this time. We only covered search for this particular one, but just know there are bidding options in display, and there's also bidding options in video. And that basically ends our session today, and hope to see you next time. I'm going to stop the live stream and see you guys next time.